Hey everybody, RetroPie Guy here. Today I'm going to do a brief demo and review of this PCE Core wireless gamepad controller from 8BitDo. So this was modeled after the PC Engine controller as well as the TurboGrafx 16 controller. So I think it's going to be really great getting into those retro console collections with this particular controller. Now this is not a Bluetooth gamepad controller, it's a wireless receiver controller, so it comes with this 8BitDo dongle here. This is how you're going to connect it to your Raspberry Pi running RetroPie. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a closer look at the controls on this particular controller. We're going to show you how to set this up and map it with RetroPie, and we'll jump into a couple different gameplay demos in those retro collections to see exactly how well this performs. Let's get started. All right, so let's take a closer look at the PCE Core wireless gamepad controller from 8BitDo. So here, just taking a quick look at it, it looks very true to that of the original PC Engine gamepad controller, but the difference is you have 4 buttons here instead of the original 2 at the bottom, and the top ones here, they are buttons instead of the sliders that the original PC Engine had for the turbo functions. So here we have our 1 button, here we have our 2 button, and then the buttons above are just extensions of these functions here. So let's say that this one is our jump button, which I think is the function of this button in most cases. The button up here is going to be the turbo function. So this one's going to give you those taller, longer, slower jumps. This is going to give you those much quicker turbo jumps. Same thing here with like strikes in most games. This will give you, like, let's say you're playing a game where this is going to be your punch or kick. You're going to do your regular punch or kick with this button. And then up here is going to be your turbo punch or kick. So this one's going to be those much faster punches and kicks. Moving over to the left-hand side, we have our standard rounded D-pad, very similar to that of the original PC Engine. And then here in the center, we have our select button and our run button. The run button is going to be pretty much the same functionality as the start button. And then we have our 8BitDo power on button here in the center. Now in RetroPie and in games, this button right here is going to behave the same way as your start button. So both of these will open up main menus, you know, if you're in your regular game collections, and then in games, they'll have the same start functionality. So going up here to the top, you can see that we have our on and off LED light indicator. And over here, we're going to have our charging port. So when you need to charge your gamepad controller, you're just going to plug in your power cable into this port right here and charge it up. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to map this with RetroPie. So first thing we need to do is take either a gamepad controller that's already been configured with our system or a keyboard and navigate to our main menu. Once we're in our main menu, we're going to go down to configure input. We're going to select that. And then you'll see here it says, are you sure you want to configure input? We'll go ahead and select yes. So now what we need to do is take our USB dongle that came with our 8BitDo controller, plug that dongle into the USB port on a Raspberry Pi, and then we're going to hit the button on the end of that dongle. You'll see a little blue light flash, and then we're going to hit this button dead center on our gamepad controller. What that's going to do is just pair the two together. You'll get this lit up blue indicator here up here on the top when it is set up, and you'll notice here on the screen it says one gamepad detected. That means that it is picking up the signal from this gamepad controller, so we're ready to map this. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit any of these buttons to jump into our mapping portion of this. You'll notice that when we hit one of these buttons that the title of this controller does populate into the bottom of this box. It will only populate for a split second and it will immediately bring us to the mapping page. So I'm going to hit the bottom 1 button here. You'll see it says PC Engine Pad, and then brings us right into our configuring page. So now we're just going to follow along with the prompts here. Now we are only going to be using a couple of these prompts because this gamepad controller is very limited in terms of the functions and buttons that we need to map. So we'll start with the D-pad here. So for D-pad up, we're going to hit our D-pad up. For D-pad down, we'll hit D-pad down. D-pad left, we'll hit D-pad left, and D-pad right, we'll hit D-pad right. For the start, we're going to hit our run button. For select, we're going to hit our select button. And now A and B are the only 2 functions we are going to map here for buttons. So for A, I like to do the bottom 1 button. Now you can do this either way you want. You could do the bottom 1 as your B button if you wanted to. I'm going to do it as A. So for A, I'll hit bottom 1. For B, I'll hit bottom 2. And now for X and Y, we're going to skip these. And the reason for that is we can't utilize these top buttons here because they are just an extension of the buttons below them. So even if you wanted to, I'll show you what happens. If let's say we want to try to map X as our top 1 button, it says already taken. And again, the reason for that is it's an extension of the function right below it, because when we jump into games, they're going to be exactly the same thing. So if this is our jump button, for example, this is going to be our jump button too, but it's going to have that turbo function enabled on it. So we might jump much slower with this button, but much higher. With this one, it's going to be shorter, faster jumps. Same thing over here. Let's say we're playing a game where this is a strike, like a kick or a punch. These are going to be our standard kick or punch button. This one up here is going to have the turbo function, so they're going to be much faster. So we're going to skip all of these remaining functions here on the mapping page. In order to do that, we hit either our bottom 1 or bottom 2 button just to bypass each of these. So we're going to bypass everything. And the reason for that is we don't need shoulder functions, we don't need trigger functions, we don't need thumb functions, and we don't need analog functions because we don't have any of those capabilities with this gamepad controller. We're going to navigate all the way down to the bottom to our hotkey enable. And the hotkey enable is going to be the button that we assign to actually exit games. So let's say that we're in a game and we want to exit that game and go back to our game collection menu. Then we would hit this hotkey enable button and that would exit that game. So we're going to assign that to select. And to confirm this, we are going to hit our A button, or what we have as our A button, which is the bottom 1 button. It's going to load for a couple seconds here. And once we go back to our main menu here, we can hit the bottom 2, which is our B button. And you can see here, just going back and forth with our D-pad, we're able to navigate through our collection. So we know that the mapping from this controller has saved and was done correctly. So we're going to navigate over to our PC Engine collection, and we're going to jump into a couple gameplay demos here. So let's go, we'll go right into this first one here, which is 1943. And this is a good one because it gives us a good idea of the functionality of the D-pad here. And we can also test out these functions as well. And you'll be able to see the difference between the regular functions and the turbo functions here. So we'll start the game, we'll do 1 player. And we'll advance past this. And here you'll notice that once we get control of our plane, let's hit the bottom 2 button. That's our regular shots. So if we hold this down, it does do a steady stream of fire, but let's go up to the turbo function of that. And you can see that this is a much faster version of holding it. And again, just to show you the difference here, let me show you this one here, which is kind of sporadic. It's still a pretty fast function, but still sporadic. And then the turbo function here is just much quicker, so we can definitely, get much further along. And then the other side is going to be our turbos. It shows the lightning on the screen there, which basically is like our bomb function. And we can utilize both of these top and bottom ones. The turbo of that is really no different in this case. So that's it for this game. Let's jump out, hotkey enable, which is going to be our select and our run button at the same time to exit back to our main menu here. And let's jump into another game. Let's do another one that will kind of give us a better idea of those differences in functions. All right, so let's check out Cybercross here. This is a good game, again, to test the difference between the regular functions and our turbo functions. All right, so right off the bat, let me test this out for you. So bottom 1 button is a taller, if you hold it, it's gonna be a high jump. Now if we hit If we hit the turbo function, you can see just holding it, it does a much quicker jump there. So now same thing with strikes. If we hit our bottom 2 button, we do our standard speed strike. Now if we do the top one, you can see just holding it, it really does that turbo function for us. So that does come in handy in a game like this. All right, everybody, so you can see from these gameplay demos and everything that this controller does work really well for PC Engine games. I didn't get into any TurboGrafx 16 games, but works exactly the same way. They are super reliable. Like anything from 8BitDo, it is made really well. It's super high quality. The functionality of everything and performance overall is really quite nice. The only thing I'm not crazy about is the fact that you really can't do much in terms of adjusting the turbo functionality on there. So you can't go ahead and adjust it from obviously those 3 settings that are standard on a PC Engine controller. Now I have heard that you're able to do that with this controller by holding the select and the 1 and 2 buttons here on the bottom. However, I did not find that to be possible with RetroPie because you do map all of those individual functions within RetroPie's system there. So when I go to do that either in game or outside in any of the menus, it actually just kind of takes one of those functions and puts it to use. So depending on what it registers as me hitting first, it's either going to open up the select function or it's going to hit either the 1 or 2 function. So I didn't find that to work. I'm not sure if different versions behave differently or what the case is exactly there. So you may be able to go in and adjust those. However, I went through the manual here that came with this. 8BitDo is an amazing company, but their manuals and instructions are usually pretty lacking. They don't go into great detail in any of their literature in any of your controller packaging. So there's no instructions on how to adjust those settings inside there. You might be able to find something on their website or on Reddit or any of those other places where you can get some information, but I didn't find that today, so I'm not able to confirm whether you're able to actually adjust those turbo functions or not. So, without being able to adjust those, I don't think it's a huge deal, but for the person that wants that, true, genuine experience of having, a PC Engine controller for your PC Engine games, then, it's kind of a miss there in terms of what 8BitDo has to offer here, because the only way you're really picking up a controller like this is if you're huge on PC Engine games or TurboGrafx games and you want to have that original experience. With a controller like this, which obviously it does have the button functions up here as opposed to the sliders, I don't think it's a huge deal, but with not being able to adjust those turbo functions, then I do think that it takes away from somebody out there trying to get the original experience with this particular controller. So, you have to kind of just figure out if it's in line with what you're looking for, or if not, in which case then maybe this isn't the controller for you, because I don't think that it is a great controller in terms of playing other collections. I think you're really only going to want to use this for your PC Engine and TurboGrafx collection. I don't think you're going to want to play, Super Nintendo with this or NES with this. I mean, I guess NES would work pretty well because, you just have those 2 functions there. But with Super Nintendo, I don't think you're going to actually be able to utilize those buttons up at the top, since they are an extension of the buttons right below them. You're not going to be able to assign separate functions to them. So, it definitely isn't going to work for most of your game collections. It's really only going to be meant for PC Engine and TurboGrafx. So, in terms of would I recommend this, I would if you're looking for something that, is going to keep you close to that original experience. I can't say that it's going to be exactly the same as that original experience for the reasons I've already mentioned, but, if you're looking for this mostly for nostalgic purposes and you want to keep it as close to possible for those PC Engine and TurboGrafx games, then I think it's definitely a good controller for you. It's not super inexpensive. I mean, it's pretty much in line with any of the other 8BitDo products out there. So if you're looking for a controller that can handle all your different systems, this is definitely not the controller for you, because this, again, is going to be meant for just those 2 particular collections. It's not going to work across the board with everything, so take that into consideration. But now in terms of performance and the overall quality of the controller itself, it definitely knocks it out of the park. 8BitDo does put together a really nice product. I have yet to find any products by them that are total misses or, are poor quality or poor performance in any way. It's a super reliable company, and they really do knock it out of the park every single time with any controller that they have available. So, all that being said, that's really going to do it for today. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, smash the like button for me. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do a whole bunch of different videos based around retro gaming. We do product reviews like this one, tutorials, gameplay demos, just a little bit of everything on here. So definitely subscribe, and definitely check us out online on our website, www.retropieguy.com. Thanks for watching.